Hello, hello. Well, there's one brave gentleman in the audience. I want to particularly say welcome to him. And then for the rest of the evening, I'll just refer to the ladies, if that's okay. It is Jewish time, so I can't say it's 7:30, but it's almost 7:45. And although we had about 30 people signed up, we live in Miami, and this is what we've got. So it's always about the quality of the people, and I can assure you our panelists and our interviewer are of the utmost quality. I want to welcome you. I'm Holly Levy. I'm on the board, and I am one of the co-chairs for the Arts and Cultural Committee. And we are delighted to have you here tonight. Unfortunately, it's spring break, and I guess we're looking at the results of spring break and scheduling. But at any rate, we are really, really honored to have this program and to present it to you. And of course, this is in... it's in honor of International Women's Day, and all during the month of March we have programs that honor and celebrate women in our life and women who inspire us, and tonight is no different. We have two superstars sitting here, and I'm happy to say we will be recording this, and it will be available online, because I know that there was a lot of people who couldn't come and who really wanted to hear Michele and Pam, so that will be great to have. There are, before I turn this over to Patty Grable to introduce our speakers, we have a bunch of events coming up the rest of the month of March, and there are flyers in the back. I encourage you to pick one up. We run programs through May, and honestly, they're great, and we welcome you to come, and we're very happy to host you and your friends. If you would please turn off your phones, and I'm just going to turn this over to Patty to do the introductions. Thank you.
Okay, well, this is quite an honor for me, because I am not only a big fan of Pam Liebman, I am a friend, so I'm excited to introduce her as well. So Pam is President and Chief Executive Officer of the Corcoran Group, the country's premier residential real estate firm, a force throughout the industry. Pam has been with Corcoran since she started in 1984 and was named President and CEO in 2000. With her strategic direction, Corcoran has achieved a record sales that have reached more than $23 billion annually. Quite amazing. A nationally recognized market expert, frequently featured in leading domestic and global news organizations, Pam currently stars in Netflix's debut of Buy My House as one of the 4 real estate investors vying for the opportunity to invest in various properties across the United States. Pam transformed Corcoran into one of the nation's most successful and prestigious real estate firms by expanding it into key East Coast markets, and with acquisitions of her top-tier firms in South Florida, Hamptons markets, and with the purchase of the City Habitats in New York City's largest rental brokerage firm. Pam launched the firm's new development arm in 1990, then called the Corcoran Marketing Group. After being named CEO, she led the acquisition of the Sunshine Group in 2002, creating the Corcoran Sunshine Marketing Group, recognized as the premier industry leader in new luxury residential development. Responsible for some of... Okay, sorry. So embarrassing. Okay, let me just go. I'm going to go right down to currently name one of the top 50 most powerful women in New York by Crain's New York Business in 2022. Pam was recognized as one of the Housing Wire vanguards. Okay, we're going to stop. I'm getting the hook. Okay. Okay, can I mention about Mount Sinai? No, okay. All right. Okay, yeah, I think so too. So I'm going to just go for it. Okay, we're on the same page here, literally. The committee of 200 and the Partnership of New York City. Okay, whatever. Pamela has also served on the board of directors for the Bass Museum, the Mount Sinai Medical Center Foundation Executive Committee, University of Miami's Master of Real Estate Development and Urbanism Advisory Board, and the Real Estate Board of New York's Executive Committee and Board of Governors. So proud. Michele, I don't know if you want to edit this. I'm scared. Okay, we are going to just say this. You know, I'm going to use my discretion. A partner at LSN Partners, LLC utilizes 3 decades of experience working in the public and private sectors to focus on strategic planning, policy and development, and nonprofit management. In collaboration with the Aspen Institute, Michele is the creator of the Miami Beach Aspen Ideas Climate and Global Solutions focused event designed for the public to interact, learn, and collaborate with thinkers and doers whose actions are critical to addressing climate-related challenges. Before joining SLSN, Ms. Burger served as a chief of staff to 2 mayors of the city of Miami Beach, where she played a crucial role in all areas, including land use, infrastructure development, the arts, resilience, and public health, namely the COVID-19 pandemic. As legislative aide in Florida Senate and House of Representatives, Ms. Burger acquired immense knowledge of the appropriation process, healthcare, and environmental issues. Throughout her career, Michele has constantly provided strategic and legislative advice to the elected officials at local and state levels. Are you good? Ms. Burger has been recognized locally and nationally with numerous honors, including the Harold Grinspoon Foundation National Volunteer Board Member of the Year, City of Miami Beach Women Worth Knowing, and Gift of Life honoree. She has served on local and national boards, including United Way, Center for Advancement of Jewish Education, March of the Living, and Camp Judaica. Michele is a graduate of the University of Florida, an avid art collector, supporter of the performing arts and visual arts community. She has 3 children and enjoys cooking and traveling. And I will leave this to both of you. Okay.
Am I live? So I think we're streaming, or at least recording, so we're supposed to use these microphones, Pam.
On it.
You're impressive. Gosh. So it's nice to be here tonight. I'm a little tired because I did just wrap up 5 days of my Aspen Ideas Climate event an hour and a half ago. And so I have laryngitis, so I apologize.
Well, I think that's pretty impressive, the climate summit here in Miami, where people do spend a lot of time talking about the climate. So
Right.
it's a good place to have it.
Right, but we're all about solutions. But we're not going to talk about me tonight. We're going to talk about you. So obviously, we'd love to hear about your background, but more importantly, we'd love to hear about how you became the CEO of Corcoran.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this is going to be shorter than the bio. I say 2 funny stories. My career started in Miami Beach when I was 2 years old. I was walking down the street, I was with my family on vacation, and I pointed to a building and I said to my mom, "What's that? What's that?" She said, "Oh, that's a condominium." And then I kept going, "Look, another condominium, condominium, condominium." So my parents always said I would end up in real estate from 2 years old. So when I graduated from college, somebody introduced me to Barbara Corcoran, who everybody knows who she is now, of course, from Shark Tank, the founder of Corcoran. And when I interviewed with her, it was a very small firm of 30 people. People used to call it Cochran and all these crazy names. And she said, "You seem like you'd be great, but you don't seem like the type to stick around very long." And the funny thing is, I've been there longer than she ever was now. So it was a fun ride. I started there. I was the top salesperson my first year. I went into management. I started the new development division. I became a partner in the company in 1990, which was really smart on her part because she was afraid I was going to leave. So she made me a partner in the company. And then I really enjoyed doing the new development, best thing I ever did. And then she asked me to become CEO of the company. And I said, just give me another year or so. You'd think I'd be jumping at the chance, but I really liked doing what I was doing. And then a year later, she said, "I really need you now." So that was in 2000. And then we were selling the company. We decided to sell the company. So we sold the company. and we actually signed the contract. We delayed it. We were just messing around for about 9 months with the buyers, and on Friday, September 7th, 2001, at 11:30 at night, we executed the contract. And then Tuesday was, of course, the fateful 9/11, and they called me up and they said, well, we can exercise the force majeure clause in the contract, but what do you think, Pam? Should we close? What's going to happen to New York? And I said, well, I don't have a crystal ball, but New York is New York. I think New York will always be a capital of the world, and New York City will always come back, so I feel really confident. And they closed 2 weeks later, and it's honestly been the best acquisition they ever did. If you recall back to those dark days in New York City, nobody bought anything for about a month or 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden New York went on an incredible roll, and then the real estate market just exploded from there. So that was sort of my real estate ride.
It's incredible.
Oh, wait, let me just say one thing about the ride. When we did one of the final negotiations, my kids always talk about this. They were little back then. It was in 2001. I was on a Ferris wheel. And my husband saying, what are you doing on the phone? He's always used to me on the phone. And it was actually like closing the last parts of the deal. So it truly was a ride.
That's cute. It's so interesting. I'm sure you can relate to this. I know that there have been so many people in my life who have played a special role as mentors, both personally and professionally. And I'm just wondering if you would, thinking back, if you would mind sharing with us who's helped you along the way. Obviously, you had a mentor in Barbara, but who are those people, and how did they help you, and what have been your takeaways from those relationships?
Well, I would say, starting with Barbara was really interesting because I don't know how she comes across really to put people on Shark Tank, but she has sort of no boundaries. And she was very interesting to work with because she was never afraid of failure, and she was never afraid to take risks. And she was this woman who started with $1,000 and a boyfriend to start a real estate company. And one day she went into the office and he said, sorry, I'm running off with your secretary. True story. And they split up the company that morning. And so she really had, started with nothing, and she was working, she came from a family of like 9 children, and she's working in New York City real estate, which back then, my friend Barbara, who's here, she's been a lifelong New Yorker. So you remember back then, real estate was traded over these dinner parties. So it was a very exclusive crowd that was selling these New York City co-ops. It wasn't a market of condos that anyone could get into. You had to have the knowledge of who was on all the co-op boards and who owned what and how to get people through. So that's the way it was traded. And hello, Mick. And they didn't let anyone into that private club. This is Mick. He's one of my top brokers. And you see, we only hire very unattractive people in really bad shape who have no skills at tennis or golf. So Barbara just said, hey, I don't care what the rules are. I'm making my own rules. And so she was great and taught me a lot about just taking chances, taking risks, creating your own path. And that was very helpful to me moving ahead and allowing all the people that I work with to not be afraid to try new things and to forge their own paths. I joined YPO, the Young Presidents Organization, when I was very young. And that's how I met Patty over there from YPO. And that's been an incredible ride because I have so many great people that I met along the way. And through that, I went to Harvard Business School program many, many times and just learned a lot from that. And I have a really good friend who's the head, she's the top commercial broker probably in the country, this woman named Mary Ann Ty. And she was a great mentor to me also from a business side of things. And my dad was great with business also. So I lost him last year at 93, but he was pretty incredible. So I try and pass it on now and help mentor some young people that come into that come into the industry. But I think I learned some really good advice along the way.
Nice. It's so nice that you mentioned your father. I, like you, have been in the same industry for over 3 decades. And there's so many lessons that I've learned along the way. And I'm just curious if you would share with us some of the most important lessons, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that have gotten you through.
So it's a really good question. I've definitely learned a lot in being in real estate for over 30 years and running a company for 20 years. But a couple of things, not in any particular order, is one is, don't be afraid to try new things. Don't look at what your competition is doing. Create your own path. I hate when people say, well, they're doing this or they're doing that. I said, I don't care. Like, we're going to do what we need to do, what we want to do. We never follow, we always lead. And I think one of the bad things that I've done is I'm a very loyal person. You could see I've been at the same company for over 30 years. I've been married for 33 years. I tend to, find something I like, I guess, and stick with it. But I've had a lot of people that have worked with me and for me throughout these years, and sometimes loyalty gets in the way because you get very close to these people and you realize they're not in the right role anymore, but you feel a little bit loyal to them. And in some cases, I probably took too long to get rid of them. And now that will never happen to me again. When you see somebody's not right in their role, and this happens over time because the real estate industry, as in many industries everyone's in, has rapidly evolved throughout these years. And somebody who was amazing at their job 10 years, 20 years ago is probably horrible at their, or not probably, but could be horrible at their job today because they get really, really set in their ways and they don't change with the times. So the definition I would have had for a manager 15 years ago is very different than the definition today. So as much as I might like somebody and have loyalty towards them, they're not the right person. What do they say? Get off the bus. So we're quick to open those doors and throw them off the bus now. But that is a really, really important lesson. We stop at first. It's only a few lawsuits along the way. He's okay. He's doing great. And let me just tell you, we talk about mentors and things like this. So here's young Mick, 34 now? 36, right, time flies. So I have known Mick since he was probably 10 years old or something. I went to his bar mitzvah, very good friends with his mom, his dad, his family. And my daughter, who's now 26 and getting married, had this huge crush on Mick, okay? And when she was getting bat mitzvahed, so she's 26, he's 36, 10 years apart. She's like, Mom, we have to invite Mick to the bat mitzvah. I said, okay, we're going to invite him. And I said, Mick can't come. He's at University of Miami. He's not going to take off from school. But Mick's dad had called me and said, Mick wants to come and surprise Tori, and he wants to do a special dance with her. So she's up on the bima, giving her, a little talk, and she's going like this. What? Mick is here. And then he does this dance, so we never forget it. It was such a sweet thing to do. But so now Mick's in college and he tells me he wants to go into real estate. So I give him an internship with us in New York and put him with the most difficult broker I have, right? I mean, this guy's crazy. But crazy to the point where he would teach Mick things like, when you're going into an apartment, let me tell you something. You make sure there's a full shelf of Fiji water in there. You make sure, I don't care if the housekeeper was in there, you make sure everything is meticulous condition. This is where the window shades go to. This is this. And he learned so much. He was tortured, but he really learned a lot. Everything, right. It's really easy after that. But it was a great learning experience. And then when Mick graduated, he started in Miami real estate, and he started with a very experienced broker. But he was so up on things. He's saying, "How could you be this good when you just got out of school?" And now he's full partners. And just in the past month, he did the highest condo deal. I'm bragging about you now, for $48 million, and he just did the highest land deal for $45 million. And I see why we were sitting here. You just got an offer for $17 million on something. But he started young and he had help, and so I think the mentoring and the ride is important, and he stood out to me because he did such a nice thing for my daughter. And it's sometimes you remember people for very unique things. I remember Patty because we did a thing for YPO, and I'm friendly with Annie Leibovitz, and I had her do an event for YPO, and Patty was like obsessed with her, and then we got to talking, and she told me all about the spoons, and I was saying to her before, my kids call her Spoons. I don't think they know her name. They're like, oh, you're going out with Spoons? So I think getting remembered for something is unique. I'm sure you're remembered for plenty.
Well, I don't know about that. I work in politics.
I'm sorry.
But I too have had unbelievable mentors in my life, and my first boss was a state senator, and he had a lot of seniority in the state senate. At the time, his party was the majority, and he was a snarky guy, but a bossy guy, and never took no for an answer, and certainly told me never to take no for an answer. I just thought when you served in the Florida legislature that you had to do whatever you had to do to broker whatever deal in order to close enough support in order to get enough votes to pass your bill. So I never ended up taking no for an answer because I was so petrified to go back to him to tell him I didn't have a majority to pass the bill. But it was one of the best lessons that he ever passed along to me, because I don't take no for an answer either.
Well, then you should really be in real estate. And my top broker is a woman that we say, in all seriousness, not even kidding, that she gets the deals done because people can't take it anymore.
Right.
And they just, she's relentless. We call her Relentless. That's her nickname. And they just buy the apartment because they can't stand her anymore.
Well, since you're passing it forward, maybe you need to hire my son because he's graduating in May from Syracuse.
Yay, there you go.
He's a lacrosse goalie, and so he doesn't take no for an answer. Anyway, I mentioned I obviously have worked in politics for a long time, and it's, like your industry, pretty volatile sometimes, and it's tough to survive and tough to thrive. And most people don't in politics, because you really have to get along with people.
I could tell that by who's running for president. It's such an exciting group.
Right? By the way, we could talk about that. That's a whole nother subject. But honestly, good people are not running for office anymore. I'm obviously generalizing, but have you thought about that?
Running for office?
Yeah, you brought it up.
Years ago, I was approached to say, it was me or someone else who works with me who's very well known, and they said, would you consider running for mayor of New York? And I looked at them, I go, are you crazy? No, I would never. And it's really sad because, look what happened to Mike Bloomberg, who I think is amazing, but obviously didn't do well as a candidate. But the press is so intrusive, and they just destroy your life. And it just takes a certain kind of a person and a certain type of an ego to really want to go into politics. And I've known one of the candidates for a long time, and he used to kid around with me and say, I'm going to make you director of housing. And I used to say, I'm sorry, I can't afford the pay cut, I admire people that are in politics because you have very thick skins, and like you said, you don't take no, and you do really good for the world, right? Well, some people do, some people don't, but I think it's such a tough road, and I think that, years ago, can you imagine if JFK was president in this environment, what would be happening to that poor guy? So, no, politics is not for me. I was student council president, and that was where I peaked.
I love that. How do you survive, though, in real estate and thrive?
I don't take anything personally.
Interesting.
I surround myself with great people. When anything goes wrong, I just blame them. No, I'm just kidding. No, I always take responsibility. I never let anyone else take the hit, because especially if I'm out there saying, go for it, you should try it. Don't be afraid to fail. I don't want anyone to ever feel badly about something. And I'll say, ultimately, I'm at the, I'm the head of the company. It's on me, right? It's on me. So I'll always take that responsibility. And I think as time goes on and you mature in your position, you're less sensitive to things. And I could see it with some of the people that work with me. If somebody resigns to go work for another firm, that's like a big one, and they're so upset. And they go, "You don't seem to care." I go, "It's not that I don't care. It's business. Don't let it affect you." And I don't let things really stress me out. I'm a good sleeper. I like to have a good time. And I know a job is a job, even though it's a big part of your life. But, nobody, we used to say, like, we're not curing cancer. Like, we're selling real estate. Sorry, Mick, it's not that big of a deal, So I just like to let things bounce off me, and I always know what's important. And the most important thing is, I almost, if anyone who's ever spent time with me, if I see my kids calling, I almost always answer the phone. If my husband's calling, like 50%, I'll answer. And that's only because he never answers when I call. But with age comes that less sensitivity and the wisdom. So that's my best advice there. Don't take it personally.
I know that for me, I have dealt with so many professional challenges. In the 90s, Hurricane Andrew was just a massive undertaking. I just had a baby. I had never in my professional career experienced anything like that. We ended up in Miami, we ended up writing the playbook for FEMA. We really did, because even by national standards, there was nothing like that. Clearly, an incident like what happened in Surfside with the Champlain Tower building was catastrophic. My municipality shared the sidewalk. I knew people in the building, but the mayor and I were probably among some of the first individuals on the ground with our first responders, and that was rough, really, really rough. And continues to be rough, by the way. And obviously the pandemic was just so challenging. Especially, most mayors in America don't deal with health-related issues because usually the state or the feds, it comes under their jurisdiction. But for us, it came down to saving people's lives. And we obviously were not on the same page as our fearless governor. So, but that's another story too for another day. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to face in real estate?
Well, nothing like what you face, because that's really life or death. And I just want to say that when that Champlain Tower came down, I was so proud of the people that worked with us, because we were up there immediately. And I was up there working at that temple, packing boxes. We had so many of our people up there. We were running around doing whatever we could. Everyone just wanted to help. And that's why you were overwhelmed with the donations of things that people never wanted. This wasn't a way to clean out your closet. This is a way to actually, help people. And it was extraordinary to see how the community came together. And I bring that up too, because I think it's important for us as people who make their living selling real estate to the people in the community, that we become part of the community, that we don't just, suck the money out of a community and not give back. So one of the things I've, personally done, I'm the incoming chair of the foundation board for Mount Sinai, which I think is so important to have a good hospital where you are. Thank you. I'm on the board of the Bass. I'm on one of the boards at the University of Miami, and I do this because I think it's important. And then in New York, I was involved in a lot of things, but it's not just me. It's all the people that work with me and my agents. Like, they get very involved in being part of the community, and that's one of the things I think that makes us really successful. We've been the number one company, and we don't have the most brokers in New York City, the toughest market in the country, for 4 years in a row, which I'm really proud of. So these are things that make the company, who we are. In terms of the challenges, of course, the pandemic, let's say that was one of the biggest challenges for real estate, because if you remember, unlike in Florida where it only shut down for a minute, it's the best thing ever right, it was no COVID in Florida, we used to say. The best thing was biking. Like, I would leave my apartment and bike down Collins Avenue and up, and I was like, this is great, you know? But COVID was what made me move permanently. I always had a home here in Miami, but when COVID hit, I realized I could just move here and stay here. So it was a big life change, but we had so many offices in Manhattan, and there was so many new rules that were happening. I mean, do you think back to the days where everything was shut, and then the days where you actually had to carry that vaccine card to go into a restaurant? I mean, it's crazy. But here we had thousands of brokers, employees, and what I ended up having to do is ask everybody, all the employees, starting with myself, to take pay cuts, salary cuts. Everybody chipped in, you know, because you all have to do it. We had people working from home. We had, you know, 2 of our guys that were processing checks that were working, you know, 24/7. We're getting them printers at their houses. It's just weird stuff that you realize that needed to happen. But I think we handled it really well, and all the heads of the other firms were calling us saying, okay, Pam, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because I'm very proud of the fact that they always think that we're going to make good decisions. It doesn't mean we always make the best decisions, but we're looked to as leaders in the community because I think our heart is always in the right place. And when I first took over the business, I always said we'll have the heart of the small, but the power of the big. And that's how I've always run the company. In terms of other challenges, you know, if you ask people 15 years ago, they said, oh, their real estate brokers will go the way of travel agents because of the internet. And how we learned to deal with technology many years ago, 11 or 12 years ago, a new company came to town with billions of dollars in VC money that, you know, threatened, everyone thought it was threatening the whole industry, but guess what, 11 years later, they still haven't made a dime. But they did change the way the economics of the business, not in a good way either, but we've done a great job of navigating through that. So I think we meet the challenges head on. Barbara once said to me, you know, you're really great in, you know, in the good times, but you're the one I want to have in the bunker when things are really bad, because I don't get rattled really by almost anything. And that's why I think we have. And part of the reason I don't get rattled is because I have great people that I can call. It's not that I'm so smart. The only thing smart about me is that I work with the right people. Right? Don't you find that to be the case?
For sure. Look, I think that you're really only as good as those you surround yourself with, period.
Yeah.
So, as humbling as it is, and then take credit for all their good work. No. So shifting over, I am, in the spirit of full transparency, I am a hardcore, full-blown Zionist. I've been to Israel, I don't know, 40, 50 times. My kids' names are Tali, Jonathan and David. I've struggled in the past not allowing my beliefs sometimes to influence my decision making or my conversations in politics. And I've, you know, for years I meet with folks who are running for the White House or running gubernatorial elections or mayoral elections, congressional. But I know for me, as of late, especially since October 7th, things have changed. And I am certainly enormously more vocal today than ever before, especially in my conversations professionally. And I'm just curious with you, how do you balance who you are and who the Corcoran brand is since October 7th?
Yeah, really, really good question. And we face it the most when we do two things. One, through social media, our posting and the posting of the people who work with us and for us, and with our Corcoran Cares, which is our charitable foundation. So even before October 7th, when the George Floyd terrible incident happened, we raise a lot of money with Corcoran Cares. Our agents, most of them give a piece of their commissions. Every commission, you know, it could be a lot of money, it could be a little money, but the point is we try and get 100% participation from employees and agents to our charitable foundation. And then we give the money out to whatever is voted on by the representatives within the offices. And we have a lot of Israelis who work for us, and I remember during when we were giving some money to Black Lives Matters, I was getting all these emails like, oh, do you know they're anti-Semitic, sending me all these things. So we've gotten really sensitive about vetting things, but I'm also very sensitive because I'm Jewish, the president of my Corcoran Sunshine Company is Jewish, my COO is Jewish, I have a lot of Jewish people that work for me, not everybody, but a lot, and we have to be, like you said, really cognizant of the fact that we can't make the company about our feelings, but we want to apply things equally. It doesn't mean we're not going to give to Jewish causes, but we're certainly not going to give to Palestinian causes, that's for sure. But we wouldn't give to a Jewish cause that is perceived to be overly, aggressive, let's say. And we have had quite a few issues since October 7th with what agents have posted. And it's really hard, and we've had our legal department weigh in on what are we allowed to do. I've terminated some people. There haven't been a lot because we tend to have good people working for us, but every now and then an agent sneaks through, and we're just not going to abide by that behavior. So a couple of weeks ago, I got an email from someone who said, I'm a developer in Brooklyn, and I can't believe you have this woman working for you. Look what she's posting. And he screenshotted some posts of her that were really anti-Semitic and very pro-Palestinian. So you can imagine what they said. So I had to go to her supervisor, go to my HR department, and work through what to do with this, because she wasn't posting it on her Corcoran profile. It was a separate profile. She didn't mention Corcoran anywhere in it. So we have to be careful. She was an employee. Are we allowed to terminate someone when they're exercising their First Amendment rights of free speech, or free speech rights, which are not tied to the company? So it's a sensitive topic, and on the board of the Bass, we were trying to figure out what kind of statements to put out, and other people that other boards that I'm on. It's been a challenge. I don't think there's any easy answers to this, especially look people who work at these massive corporations, what they're posting out there. Look how many people have been outed. I'm personally so offended from the Oscars the other night with those damn red pins. Now I hate Mark Ruffalo, whatever the hell his name is. I don't think there's a place for that. But I don't know, how have you had dealt with it with all your things?
It's tough. It is tough. I was just involved with something where I was dealing with an individual who chose to make this a really big issue, and like you said, it. Out of context, it's hard to sometimes you have to consider the business impact, right? You have to consider the optics, but at the same time, sometimes you have to put your foot down, and right is right. I'd rather deal with the consequences afterwards, I think, for me, if I'm as opposed to not supporting the state of Israel. I feel like history is repeating itself, and I've spent so much time with so many Holocaust survivors over the years. I've been connected to the same Jewish overnight camp for 49 years to this day, and that's just more important to me, to my core, and so I don't care anymore. I have reached a point where I just don't care anymore. So whatever I can do to help Israel, I'm going to do, period. And it's not political. For me, it's about the survival of the state of Israel and the survival of not only all Jews in the diaspora, but probably all minorities around the world, because I think it's just beginning with us. There's nothing good that I can say about hate. And I think that's what October 7th is all about.
I know it's the only people that it's okay seemingly to hate. It's okay to protest and hate the Jews, and I don't get that. But I was so happy to see so many people I know who were involved in the takedown of these leaders on campus at Penn and Harvard and other schools, and I think it was really important. And I think what's going on now is how they're continuing to get some of this out of the classrooms, because it's, when you read the paper and you see what's going on in the classrooms, you're just like blown away. You say, what year is this? This is 1940? I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I think, so Holly and Every and Patty and all of you who are involved here in the JCC or in the Temple, or like I am involved with the JNF, it's crazy. I was so proud the night, did anyone go to the big dinner down here for the JNF where they raised $30 million in one night? You know about that though, because Jordy was at something the night before, and it was crazy. Almost everyone in the room stood up and gave money, $30 million in one night. It was unbelievable. So there is thank God for the strong Jewish community, because there are just so many haters out there, and it's hard to fathom. I can't watch or read certain things because it's just too heartbreaking.
I feel the same way. It's just incredible. I used to love, I'm not even going to say the podcast that's affiliated with the publication, but I used to love it every day, and I can't turn it on anymore. I just cannot turn it on anymore.
Try Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
At least you'll laugh.
So I don't know, is there something that we didn't talk about you want to talk about, or do we open it up to questions, or how does this work? Our fearless leader. Are we at time? What do we?
We
give
can
us
do
some
questions, or
yeah. Are there any questions?
I was going to take the mic to whoever has questions, because that really helps.
I don't think we have any questions.
Oh, thank you. Any questions? I'll ask a question. I missed part of your speech because your questioning, because I was running around working. But what do you?
It's no excuse.
What do you? Well, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch the recording.
Right.
But my question is, what do you? If you haven't answered this, what do you foresee as some of the big pluses and minuses, big issues of the next few years?
Down here in Miami, or in?
Sure.
Oh gosh.
Where do you start?
That's a good question for you. Well, we were talking about this today about Miami. I don't know about the rest of you. I mean, there's so many issues, but let's get really petty with little issues that affect us every day. The traffic. It's so annoying, right? I mean, and Barbara and I were talking the other night, like, I can't even believe they're thinking of allowing them to build all that housing in Bal Harbor, right? You can't even make a left on 95th Street now. But I'm fascinated, and I wanted to talk to you more about the climate summit that you ran, because I'm in real estate, so I love development, but I went to dinner last night in Brickell Key. You can't even get there. Like, Miami wasn't built for all of this. So I'm very concerned about the climate change, how it'll affect Miami, how people are ever going to get around in Miami, and I do know a lot of people that are moving north. They're sort of over it here. They say it's just gotten very hard to live here, and it's really expensive. And I went to get a manicure today, and it sounded like what I hear in the Hamptons. You know, in the Hamptons, everybody who works there can't afford to live there. So they have this thing called, you know, it's sad, but they call it the trade parade. So every morning at 5:30 a.m., the trucks and everybody are coming in, and at 3:30 to 6, they're going out. And the manicurist said to me today, I can't take it anymore. It's too expensive here. I'm moving out of state. And my rent is going up. I know some people at my building that just left. So I worry about how unaffordable Miami's getting, how they're going to deal with that. I worry about the climate and just the overall infrastructure and the lifestyle that we have here, and how it's sort of getting a little bit corrupted. And, you know, for a lot of us, it's no big deal. You go to a restaurant, you get the bill, you go, wow, that's ridiculous. It's so expensive. But think about the people that it's not, oh, this is ridiculous. It's so expensive. It's, oh my God, I can't even eat out anymore, right? So you're in politics. What do you think of all this that's going on?
Loaded question.
I'm going to put this down for a while now.
You know, in Miami Beach, I mean, this is it's a 7-mile long island, 1 mile wide, right? We were not built. This is not sustainable. the construction that we've seen, the vehicular traffic that we've seen, it's really not even safe to be a pedestrian in so many areas in Miami Beach, let alone in Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County's population is almost 3 million. Miami Beach is around 92,000. But I was with the airport director yesterday, and he was telling me that we're going to bypass, he's projecting 54 million arrivals in Miami International Airport. Now, last year, I think the city of Miami Beach welcomed 15 million visitors to our little teeny island. Now, granted, not everyone has a car. Some people are Ubering or using some other form of transportation and not necessarily parking, but the beach is certainly becoming unaffordable for individuals who are working in the hotels and the restaurants. It's really not cost effective for them to even work here, right? Many of them are dropped off. Many of them just can't afford to park here. And what's happening is it's obviously having an impact on the labor force that's in the hospitality industry here in Miami Beach and all of Miami-Dade County. And as we're welcoming truly some 5-star properties in the very near future, like Bulgari, right, and others, Amman, it's going to be very interesting to see who they're able to hire. The owner of the Four Seasons was really smart. He ended up buying some of the properties around the Four Seasons so that he could be a landlord to his employees. And he told me during COVID, it was fascinating because all of his employees were across the street. But I think that's a classic example of how do corporations and corporate leaders be better community thought leaders, right? It was interesting. I was with yesterday the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Transportation, Polly Trottenberg. She was here, and the Secretary of Energy for the United States, Secretary Granholm, was here too, and we were talking about that we're dealing with issues in this country. Obviously in Miami, where I think we're at ground zero because of the porous geology, that we're in trouble, right? And we talked about what happened in Surfside. It's an example of what can happen, and it's something that all of us have to be much more mindful about. Climate challenges are real. We can all have provocative conversations about it, but I'm not interested in having any kind of debate with anyone about whether or not climate is a real issue. It's more about what are the solutions. And so for Aspen Ideas Climate, Dan Gelber, who was the mayor at the time, he and I created it about 4 years ago with the CEO of the Aspen Institute, because they already had this convening model in Aspen, Colorado, where they bring people together to talk about really important issues. And so we knew we were coming out of the pandemic and we needed to fast track some of our infrastructure improvements because every government around the globe had put their infrastructure improvements on hold for more than 2 years because of the pandemic. Meanwhile, climate issues were continuing to impact people's properties, commercial or private, right? In Miami Beach, we have over 55 miles worth of seawalls in Miami Beach alone, but the government only owns about 5 or 6 miles.
Try getting insurance.
So, and by the way, the insurance company at some point is probably going to walk away in Florida because
trying really hard.
The banks and the insurance companies can't fix this together. The government isn't forcing the insurance companies and the banks to fix it. The legislature doesn't want to fix it. So what's going to happen? The insurance
I think
companies are going to
this
walk.
was a scam. This is just so we could say you all should sell your apartments. And here's Mick. Okay.
You've been set up.
we. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
TikTok's videos where people say, "Oh, there's not a good time to buy. It's not a market for buyers." what is your opinion on that? And is there a good market for buyers, or is it a good time to buy an apartment, especially for those who are just starting, saving for their first time investment and buying first place? Is there such a thing as a good time, or you just buy where you see what you like and then you hope for the best?
So I always try and say that you should buy an apartment when it suits your lifestyle. It's very hard to sharpshoot the market, right? Because right now there's less buyers, which is a good thing because the interest rates are high. So especially first-time buyers who rely on mortgages, there's not as many of them, so maybe you could get a better deal. But people say, yes, but the mortgage rates are so high, I'll wait for the mortgage rates to come down, and then everybody's waiting. So then you're going to be competing again. What's sad is that a lot of inventory has not been freed up because people won't leave their homes where they're paying a 3 or 3.5% mortgage. So we're in this terrible situation where there's not enough inventory, so prices are high, mortgages are high, and people's lives are getting put on hold. And of course, rents have gone way up. So you sort of just have to decide what's best for you and then really just, bite the bullet if you find an opportunity. So I always say learn the market, and then when you're ready, you should pounce on something and hope that long term, because typically long term the real estate does work out, unless of course you bought a Park Avenue co-op like 10 years ago, and then you're screwed. But in real estate here in Miami, and another problem is since Surfside, with all these older co-ops and the older population, they can't afford to pay the assessments to do these new 40-year studies. So these developers are, crowding around these buildings trying to buy out all the tenants. They have nowhere to go once they're bought out. Even if they get $1 million, where are they going? So they have to get away from Miami probably, and then we'll build more expensive apartments on the beach. So it's a tough situation.
Don't you think that the DNA of this community is so critical to how we function, how we perceive ourselves, how others perceive us? And the fact that, we went through a major gentrification, especially in the 90s, and now so many young people can't afford to live here. And it's important that we have flavor here. Young, old, right?
Totally.
We need diversity.
You need
right?
diversity. You need to have a healthy ecosystem of people. And when you price lots of groups of people out, then you're left with a very homogeneous place that is not nearly as interesting. Look, I'm thrilled that you have Sunset Harbor and Edgewater where things are a little bit more affordable and you see tons of young people living there. I have a friend who's a big developer in Miami, and she always says, Pam, you always think Miami is the beach. It's not the beach. We have this unbelievable city called Miami, and there's a lot that goes on there. And that's where a lot of the development is happening, and people always say, oh my God, I see all those cranes downtown in Brickell. Who is filling those towers? So yesterday I had lunch with a friend of mine who runs a very, very high-end boutique in the Design District, which is hopping now. I was there this weekend. It's busier than I've ever seen it, and the stores are doing great. And he said, in 2019, most of his traffic was South American. Now it's a third South American, a third international, a third local, Miami, and a third domestic, so from other parts. And he said the traffic is up 500% from where it was. So there's plenty of people, like you said, are coming here. And I think some of what they're trying to do, like getting rid of these spring breakers, is great. Unless, of course, you're trying to go across the bridge or come back on a weekend. Like, you can't do that, right? But, I'm in favor of that. If I owned restaurants on Ocean Drive, I probably wouldn't be in favor of that. Dan was not in favor of that. So there's always I think a healthy balance. But Miami does need great thought leadership now because we're in a very difficult situation here. Everybody wants to be here. It's a great lifestyle. But you could look at like some of the clubs, right? So some of us here, we all belong to the same club, and you could just see the dichotomy of, the new people, right? Which is code for all those New York Jews. Right?
The 917 crowd.
The 917 crowd, right? Versus the people who have been here forever and don't feel like having their lives disrupted and taken over by the perceived, new people that maybe came down here, whether they have money or they don't have money, the idea that they want to change things, right? Because there is a right of people who lived here and who were getting their kids into Ransom and into Gulliver and into all these schools, and now all of a sudden they're fighting all these new people. So it's really a challenge. I don't know I don't have any solutions for it, but there's got to be some balance that's found in a community like this now.
I'm wondering if you see any sort of, not backlash, but change of mind. Now that COVID's over, so many people we know from New York moved down here permanently, right? They sold their city apartment and they moved down here. Do you see them leaving here, like getting sort of disheartened by
You're
what's
not
going on?
getting rid of us so easily, Holly.
Like maybe moving to Palm
No, yes,
Beach,
absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
leaving Miami because they don't.
I've seen quite a few people. Look, it's not like it's an epidemic and everyone's leaving, because there's plenty of people that are here. But there are many people who have gotten frustrated with the crowds, with the prices. And honestly, if you're a golfer, you can't get into a golf club here. If you can't get your children into school, it's a challenge. And they move a little bit further north and they move into a community, and it's a little bit of an easier lifestyle. So we have seen people leave. I have a friend who lives at the surf club, Dunn, just bought in West Palm Beach, and said, I have a bunch of friends that are going to move up there. And there are some people who have moved back to New York, but they want to keep their properties here. There's no mass selling of I'm putting my house on the market and I'm deserting Miami. But, I mean, do you all know people that have sort of moved north or changed their mind about Miami, or no?
And mostly Palm Beach.
Yeah,
Southern
mostly.
area.
Yeah.
And people are actually looking at the new developments there and have plans.
We're marketing a really nice project in West Palm Beach for Related New York, moved down to Miami and they have 5 developments they're doing there, plus enormous amount of commercial. And one of the projects we're doing is a Robert Stern building, which is a very popular architect, and they just mailed the surf club because they're targeting people at the surf club to see, because one of the people who is moving up there, and he said, there's going to be a bunch of people, and now more than one. So now they're targeting that, which is interesting.
Any other questions?
Do you see people afraid to buy because of the water level rising? I mean, you're talking about climate change, but you're not specifically mentioning the water, which is really an issue.
I can tell you with Aspen Ideas Climate last year, I had Vice President Harris here, and I put her on the stage with Gloria Estefan, because Gloria has been extremely concerned for a very long time. She lives here on the beach. She lives on the water. She has a property in Vero Beach on the water. She's been extremely vocal about the rising waters. She watches it. She and Amelia watch it every day. And it was a huge topic with the vice president. I used to live on the water here in Miami Beach, and we sold our property because we had some concerns. But I think that, look, at the end of the day, people have to live life. It's very important, right, that none of us have crystal balls, and I think that a lot of us are smart people, and when we work together to solve things, the power of a group is pretty strong, and this is solvable, but people have to put party affiliation aside and personalities aside in order to come up with real, viable solutions, practical solutions to address climate issues. It's just the reality. And that's why for me, creating an event, a big convener like Aspen Ideas Climate has been so great over the last 3 years, because I put thinkers and doers in the room. I had 55 mayors from around the United States in the room this week, with a couple of cabinet members and with a group of nonprofit thought leaders and scientists and venture capitalists and financial institutions who are who are helping governments figure out how to finance these astronomically high, expensive, crazy expensive infrastructure improvements. But it's people have to be educated and not afraid, right, to take this on. This is no different than when automobiles were fighting people about whether or not to pass a seatbelt law. Either people are going to keep dying, or we can come up with a preventative solution and less people are going to die. This is no different than smoking nicotine. Either people are going to keep having health problems, or the tobacco industry is going to have to come to the table and come up with some solutions to make their product a little bit safer. So I really do think that this is solvable. But I think as it relates to where people live, we live in one of the most magnificent places in the world, Miami Beach. Because Miami to me is Miami Beach. When people say Miami, I say, you're saying Miami Beach. Al Roker's producer sent me a little video that she shot of him yesterday, because he was trying to get his steps in. So he was so cute. He started singing, but before he started singing, because he was going to be on the stage with Kathy Hayhoe, who's the chief scientist from the Nature Conservancy. So he was singing, "I'm going to be on the stage with Catherine Hayhoe, hey-ho." But anyway, I'm getting out of myself. So he walks into the convention center, into the back. Because we were all backstage and we had to kick him out to go to another place. And so Al starts his whole video spiel by saying, "I'm in the Miami Convention Center." So the producer sends it to me, and I said, tell him to go back and do 1,000 steps, because he needs to say Miami Beach Convention Center. But look, we do live in one of the best communities in the world. And one of the reasons why it's one of the greatest places in the world is because of all the organic, natural ingredients, right, of our DNA. The beach, the trees, the sand, the weather, right? We have incredible human beings here. We have an incredible culture, the art community,
And
the
all
restaurants.
the fun, all the fun stuff that's come here. F1, the Miami Open, Basel, obviously, that's been here forever.
Right.
I mean, so much cool stuff. But I just want to go back for 1 second to your question. Yes, there are people that don't want to live on the beach. There are people that are very afraid of it. The new zoning laws certainly have helped, but people are freaked out about the insurance costs. So, Mick, I want to ask you a quick question. You sold last year one of the most expensive places ever on the beach. You put 3 houses together for almost $100 million in Golden Beach. What did that guy say about climate and the ocean?
He was like, I'm 75, this is where I want to live. So it was like what you were saying, I gotta live somewhere, so I'm going to choose to live on the water. And they're going to build 13 feet above. They're going to build to the maximum height that they can build. So it's as resilient as it can be against the rising waters.
So he wasn't afraid to, obviously, to buy and build there.
Isn't it exciting that we can also come up with our own solutions, right? There are laws, obviously, that say you have to build a seawall X number of feet. But how exciting that a property owner says, you know what, I'm going to go a little bit higher. How exciting, though, is it? Well, if I'm landscaping... Right, exactly. What's your point, Holly?
No, that's your dating name. Well, anyway, go ahead.
We're grateful that we don't live in a city where the crime rate is very, very high, like other cities compared to Miami Beach. But the other day, I hardly ever watched the local news in the morning. I was watching the local news, and it showed this guy came in, asked the cashier for a knife. She says, "I don't have a knife." And outside the window, outside the glass doors was this visitor. You could tell he had white legs. He was like a visitor. And he's just standing there maybe waiting for his wife to park the car or whatever. And this guy leaves this little supermarket and goes outside, walks past this guy, turns around, goes back to the guy and punches him in the face. For no reason. The visitor was just standing there on the sidewalk. So the point is that I know we have crime, but not like other cities. But are you all addressing anything about the crime?
I'm not with the government anymore. But I do think, look, first of all, we really do have a pretty low crime rate in Miami Beach. We really do. We have an incredible police department here also. When someone's alarm goes off and there are 2 or 3 police cars that drive up, I mean, that is a really big deal compared to other parts of the world. I do think that mental health problems in this country and around the globe are getting worse and worse. My daughter's getting her doctorate in psychology. Thank goodness she's graduating in May. I think that I know that she's told me so many incredible stories that are frightening to me because of even looking at the impact that the pandemic has potentially had on young people who didn't go to school for 2 years maybe, who were dealing with a family unit, regardless of what that family unit looks like, because that can look quite different in lots of different households. But in 20 years from now, I think that most students today who are in psychology doctoral programs, this is a huge focus of theirs. We are not dealing with mental health issues in this country. There's so much stigmatism about mental health in general. And honestly, if you or I, if any of us were to see someone with a broken leg or a paraplegic in a wheelchair, someone stuck, walking with crutches, the level of empathy is almost as if we don't even think about it. It's so subconscious. You all of a sudden have feelings for someone, as opposed to when someone's dealing with issues, and it could be depression, we don't have the same kind of empathy. And it's a problem. It's a really big problem. And I think that has had an impact on crime. But it's something that every family is dealing with mental health issues in America. And I think it's something that we have to deal with, starting with our babies.
Well, I think that whatever you think of the politics aside, they've definitely done a better job here than they've done in a lot of cities. My kids live in New York, and it's a disaster. They call me and I say, please don't talk to me while you're walking. Pay attention. But anyway, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Michele.
Thank you.
Are we good?